Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a hammer to a super common and honestly exhausting myth, the idea that building muscle requires you to practically live in the weight room. What if I told you that building serious muscle is actually highly efficient and really just comes down to understanding a little bit of basic math? Here's a quick look at what we're covering today. We've got the minimum effective dose, sweat versus the minimalist, the fractional bicep, and finally, the 8-year mirror test. Let's jump right in. Section 1. The minimum effective dose. We're looking at the exact math of diminishing returns to find the absolute minimum amount of work required for maximum results. All right, 4. Just 4. It sounds way too low, right? But believe it or not, this is the magic number when it comes to muscle growth. According to the research, just 4 sets per muscle group per week is all it actually takes to effectively trigger growth. Let that sink in for a second. We're not talking about 4 sets a day or 4 different exercises, just 4 sets total per muscle group over an entire week. And here is the truly crazy part. That tiny 4-set dose, it gets you a whopping 80% of the way to your absolute genetic potential for that muscle. That means the vast majority of your gains, the stuff you actually notice in the mirror, are unlocked right at the very beginning of your effort. Anything you do beyond those initial 4 sets is just you fighting for that incredibly stubborn, highly inefficient 20% remaining potential. And that, my friends, is where diminishing returns hit you like a brick wall. If you're constantly grinding past those 4 sets, you enter a zone where your return on investment just absolutely plummets. You're out there putting in double, triple, maybe even quadruple the effort for barely any additional size. You're sweating more, tearing more muscle fibers, needing vastly more time to recover, all for a return that is practically invisible to the naked eye. Which brings us to Section 2, Sweat versus the Minimalist, a tale of 2 totally different lifters. Let's break down these 2 archetypes, because they handle this gym math very differently. You've got the grinder, let's call him the gym sweat, and then you have the optimizer, the minimalist. Now, they both want the exact same thing, a great physique, but the paths they take to get there literally could not be more opposite. We all know a gym sweat, right? Picture the guy squatting 400 pounds, violently shaking the floor, making those incredibly loud pressure washer sounds every single time he stands up. He is utterly obsessed with what's optimal. He's in there 6 days a week, pushing an exhausting 20 to 40 sets per muscle group because he thinks that's the fastest route to his dream physique. But there's a huge, fatal flaw in his system. Because his routine is so hyper-intense, he inevitably crashes. He burns out, stops going for a month, and then spends his next few weeks just trying to recover the progress he lost. It's a highly stressful, totally volatile cycle. Now take a breath and contrast that frantic energy with the minimalist. The minimalist walks in, smiles, waves at the front desk, and only hits the gym maybe 2 times a week. They follow the strict 4-set rule, exactly 4 sets per muscle, and then they're done. They stop. Sure, their progress isn't some overnight explosion, it's a slowly but surely kind of thing. But here's their secret weapon. Because the routine is so incredibly manageable, they never burn out. They never take a month off. They never move backward. With that unwavering consistency, they eventually max out their lifetime muscular potential exactly like the sweat does. But crucially, they save all that extra physical and mental energy for, actually living life. There's a brilliant quote from the source material that sums this up perfectly. Since the ceiling for how much muscle you can gain in a lifetime is basically the same, the minimalist simply chooses to take the scenic route. Your biological ceiling honestly doesn't care how loud you grunt. Both of these lifters share the exact same genetic limits. One of them just decided to take a much more pleasant, highly efficient journey to get there without making the gym their entire personality.
All right, Section 3, the fractional bicep. How to hit 4 sets without even really trying.
So you're probably wondering, how on earth do you hit 4 sets for every single muscle in just 2 days? Well, the secret lies in a really cool concept called fractional sets. You see, you don't actually need to do direct isolation exercises to hit your quota. You can earn what we call passive credit from larger compound movements. Sure, a bicep curl counts as 1 full set for your biceps, but our bodies are connected. Muscles rarely ever work in total isolation.
Think about those instruction stickers slapped on the side of gym machines. You know the ones, the drawing of the transparent guy with his primary muscles highlighted in bright red. But if you look closely at those stickers, you'll almost always see smaller muscles, highlighted in a lighter shade of pink. Those are your secondary muscles activating to support the movement. And in minimalist math, that secondary activation translates directly to passive credit for your weekly quota.
Let's play this math out in the real world. Say you knock out 3 sets of pull-ups.
Pull-ups are primarily a back exercise, but your biceps are pulling a lot of weight there too. Under the 4-set rule, each pull-up set gives you roughly half a set of passive credit for your biceps. Next, you do 2 sets of heavy rows. Again, mostly back, but heavily utilizing the arms. Between those 3 sets of pull-ups and 2 sets of rows, you've mathematically maxed out your minimum effective dose for your biceps. You hit your 4-set minimum without doing a single curl. If you start adding curls after that, you're just plunging straight into those brutal diminishing returns.
Moving into Section 4, the 8-year mirror test. Let's look at the long game.
Let's fast forward a decade. If you track a lifter's journey over time, there's a very clear, almost unavoidable pattern. Year 1 is incredibly exciting. You're building the foundation, seeing rapid newbie gains. But by year 4 or 5, you hit a very noticeable plateau in your appearance. The dramatic changes just stop. By the time you reach year 8 and beyond, whether you want to admit it to yourself or not, you're essentially in a pure maintenance stage. Most people look barely any different at year 8 than they did at year 5.
Fully aware of this long-term reality, the minimalist uses a ridiculously simple stress-free formula. Step 1, follow the 4-set rule. Step 2, never miss a week, which is easy because the workout is so short you have no excuse. And Step 3, simply use progressive overload over the years. Just occasionally add 1 extra rep or a tiny bit more weight. By executing these 3 basic steps week in and week out, the minimalist hits the exact same physical peak as the frantic gym sweat, just with a fraction of the effort.
10 years down the line, the contrast is honestly staggering. Our gym sweat has spent thousands of hours agonizing over the perfect, optimal splits. They've poured their money into marketing gimmicks, choking down whatever new protein slop the industry is pushing, all to chase what we call maybe gains, those tiny microscopic improvements that might not even really exist. The minimalist, on the other hand, accepted the baseline. They recognized they'd reached their maximum potential, and they simply maintained it with an easy routine, freeing themselves up to live a remarkably full life. And that leads to the ultimate payoff, because the minimalist wasn't spending 6 days a week recovering from grueling 40-set routines. They had literally thousands of extra hours at their disposal. The source material describes this beautifully. While the sweat was grinding for an invisible fraction of an inch on their bicep, the minimalists used their time to travel, meet incredible people, learn new skills, and build a Wikipedia article's worth of achievements completely outside the gym walls.
So, as we wrap up today's explainer, I really want you to think about this question. Look at your own routines. Are you exhausting yourself chasing maybe gains? If you applied the 4-set rule starting tomorrow and took back all that time and energy from the grips of diminishing returns, what would you do with your extra thousands of hours? It's a massive world out there. Go optimize your time and go live it. Thanks for hanging out with me today.